have Finding Nemo: The 5 Stages of Grief. A large community on Reddit was shocked to hear of one person's theory about the infamous Disney movie Finding Nemo. The user concluded that the movie was demonstrating the 5 stages of grief. The theory is that Nemo actually died with his siblings and mother, and that Marlin imagines a single egg surviving, demonstrating the first stage of denial, where he refused to accept that the horrific event happened. Then it becomes anger when Nemo does anything even remotely dangerous. Then moves into bargaining, which Marlin does quite frequently on his quest to find Nemo. Then he eventually feels despair when he becomes ready to give up on the search. And then comes acceptance, where he finally is at peace and learns to not obsess over Nemo. I wouldn't put it past Disney to have at least developed the idea from this starting point. This theory feels pretty accurate to me. If you're liking this video so far, don't forget to smash that like button, as it will really help us out. In our number 9 spot, we have the Little Mermaid Hunter. In the original Little Mermaid, we learn that Ariel has a mother, but we never learn what happened to her until the 2008 movie The Little Mermaid: Ariel's Beginning. That is when we find out that Ariel's mother Athena was killed by a pirate ship, which is why King Triton hates humans. Well, perhaps you may have heard of another Disney tale with pirates called Peter Pan, and in this tale, Captain Hook, the villain of the story, is the captain of a pirate ship. We also see a group of mermaids in Peter Pan at Mermaid's Lagoon, and one of them looks an awful lot like Ariel, and she is even wearing a gold crown. Probably the queen. So that of course has led to the theory that it was Captain Hook's ship that killed Ariel's mother, and therefore Captain Hook killed her. That one blew my mind. In our number 8 spot, we have the Frozen Wisdom. I don't need to pray for this theory to be real or not, because it's awesome and it just deserved an honorable mention. People are convinced that the writers of Frozen 2 may have perhaps gone to a lot of therapy in their time, or worked with psychologists to help write the film, because the film is filled with the most amount of wisdom. The type of wisdom you only hear from your therapist. Just do the next right thing, Anna sings as she makes the horrible realization that her sister Elsa and her friend Olaf have passed away. Anna sings about the grief that she is feeling and describes a heaviness that only people that have truly suffered from depression would understand. She goes on to coach herself to do the next right thing, take one step at a time. The best piece of advice you could give someone when they're in the thick of it all. In another case, the people of Arendelle have to evacuate, and after the chaos, Olaf lets all of the young ones play with him and stick icicles in him. He says to them, "We call this controlling what you can when things feel out of control." Another wonderful piece of advice. In our number 7 spot, we have Peter Pan the Psychopath. Now we all know that Neverland is a place where you never have to grow up and you can be a kid forever. And that's all Peter wants for his friends, whether you're a lost boy or a darling. Sure, fun and games all day sounds amazing. But what if you get tired of childhood and decide it's time to grow up? Well, this theory suggests that Peter doesn't take too kindly to adults, even if they started off as friends. In fact, he hates adults so much that he wants to kill them. There are few adults in the movie, the main ones we see being Captain Hook and the crew of the Jolly Roger, and we know how much Peter hates them, so what if the Lost Boys decided it's time to become lost men? Well, following this theory, Peter kills any of the Lost Boys who try to grow up and finds new ones to take their place, so he has friends to play with forever. Captain Hook was actually one of the Lost Boys in the past and learned the truth of who or what Peter is and escapes, rescuing others as he does, and they grow up into the crew. Ooh, this is why Hook hates Pan so much, so maybe Hook wasn't the villain after all. In our number 6 spot, we have a scorned lover. Ooh, this is a juicy fan theory that honestly feels like whomever came up with it must have also known the pain of being betrayed. The theory is around the movie The Beauty and the Beast, and the theory goes that the witch or enchantress that had created the curse that turned the prince into the beast and all of his royal courtiers into what are usually inanimate objects did so because she was a lover scorned. She and the beast were former lovers, and he dismissed her once he got bored of her, which is something that royals were known to do in the past. The courtiers also would have treated her badly because they are loyal to the prince, so she placed a curse on them to teach them a lesson about respecting women. I see it. It makes more sense than a witch trapping the whole house just because the prince was prideful. There was clearly a deeper lesson afoot. In our number 5 spot, we have Eeyore's origin. Eeyore, everyone's favorite depressed donkey. While everyone in the 100-Acre Wood is usually pretty carefree and happy, Eeyore seems to always be in a bad mood, and I would be too if my tail kept getting lost or stolen and my house collapsed all the time. But some theorists think that there is a more sinister reason for the gloomy nature. But for that, we need to go all the way back to the 1940s movie Pinocchio. In the film, our puppet protagonist becomes a real boy, and after some wild adventuring, he is rewarded with a trip to Pleasure Island, a land where you can do anything you want and no grown-ups can stop you. But there is a curse placed on the island, and anyone who indulges is turned into a donkey. And we see in the movie that many of the donkeys can still talk. So the theory suggests that Eeyore was once a real boy, and he made the mistake of going to Pleasure Island and was cursed to take his more furry form. But it seems he managed to escape to the safety of the 100-Acre Wood, and now he lives out the rest of his days longing to regain his lost humanity. In our number 4 spot, we have Moana died. This is yet another very interesting and thought out theory around the movie Moana. In the beginning of the movie, Moana is on her boat stuck in a thunderstorm when the boat was struck by lightning. It is theorized that she died on the boat, which is most likely what would happen to any living being. The theory is expanded to state that Moana's spirit is completing the quest for the rest of the journey, and that is why she only meets gods and spirits the rest of the way. She is on their plane of existence. Then the theorist went on to state that after she finishes her quest, her spirit goes back into her body, and that is when she goes back to her island. Ooh, I bet you that some of these Reddit theorists are really just Disney employees, just, revealing secrets that they could only reveal anonymously. In our number 3 spot, we have The Fly. In the movie The Emperor's New Groove, Yzma has all sorts of potions to turn people into any animal you can think of, and she turns Kuzco into a llama. But I'm sure this isn't the only time she's done something like this. While most of the animals in the movie can't be understood by humans, like the squirrel only being able to communicate to Kronk through squeaks and gestures, there are obviously animals that can talk. Kuzco as the llama, Yzma as a cat, and there is one other strange example that throws the whole world of the film for a loop: the fly stuck in the spider's web. While walking in the forest, Kuzco sees a fly trapped in a web, and it is yelling out for help, but it's devoured quickly. Now, while this is an obvious reference to the 1958's The Fly, it also begs the question of who else has Yzma turned into animals. Was this one of Kuzco's once loyal subjects? And are there other jungle creatures who used to be humans out there? Let's hope they at least got to be better ones than a fly. In our number 2 spot, we have the evil trolls. Okay, here's another Frozen theory for you. What if Prince Hans wasn't actually evil? What if he was manipulated by magic? A lot of fans online thought that Prince Hans, who had a plot twist of being the overarching villain of the story, was a little out of left field. He was seemingly so good for most of the story, and then all of a sudden he was evil. Well, one Reddit user had a very good theory on this. The trolls, who are a part of Kristoff's family, have some very rare magic, and as they have Kristoff's best interests at heart, perhaps they used magic to change Anna and Hans's path and turn Hans evil so that Kristoff could end up with Anna. Arguably, it's probably for the best, as she actually had a friendship with Kristoff, and all she knew about Prince Hans was that they had a few things in common, like chocolate and sandwiches. Not a solid basis for a lasting relationship, but still, perhaps the trolls altered Anna and Prince Hans's path, and they are the true villains of the story. And finally, we reach our number 1 spot, Walt's mom. Walt Disney, of course. Ever wonder why none of the princesses or main characters in Disney movies seem to have mothers, or at least ones who are still alive? I mean, Cinderella, Bambi, Ariel, Belle, Jasmine, the list goes on and on. Well, some think that this is actually related to a terrible tragedy in the Disney family. In 1937, Walt and his brother Roy bought their parents a house with their newfound success, a dream for anyone. But unfortunately, this would be a terrible mistake. One day, their mother Flora called Walt to complain that their furnace was leaking leaking gas. Walt sent some folks from the studio over to fix it, and they did, or so they thought. The next morning, the housekeeper returned to find Mr. and Mrs. Disney unconscious and dragged them out into the front lawn. Their father was taken to a hospital and survived, but unfortunately their mother passed away at the scene. This tragedy was well known by those who worked at the studio, and many thought that it affected the stories they told going forward, that Walt was so traumatized that he passed the trauma onto the characters in the films as a way to move on himself. Either way, it's interesting to look into the man who created an empire.
Number 10. Pitching Aladdin. Aladdin is a lovely movie about valuing yourself beyond the external appearance of riches and fame. However, the majority of the story is made possible by the enigmatic genie, who himself is a being of awesome power, able to grant any of 3 wishes. And while the story is wonderful, we do need to remember how it opens. See, at the beginning of the film, Aladdin is presented as a sort of sales pitch by a merchant, which is a tactic frequently used with the hopes of getting people to spend more on goods than the goods are actually worth. Because of this, and due to the film's ending, it's entirely possible that the story is meant to scam us, the purchaser, out of our hard-earned money. Number 9. Cars. A world where anthropomorphic cars exist in the place of humans. It's cute, but certainly not if you think about it for more than a couple of seconds. Why are bugs cars? Are all living things in this universe cars? Down to the bacteria? Where does gas come from? Dinosaurs? But if bugs are cars, wouldn't dinosaurs also have been cars as well? Going on the establishment of this universe as everything that lives must be a car or some sort of motor vehicle, then that would make the act of drinking gasoline an act of cannibalism. Oh my god. How do cars reproduce? Oh, no, I can't. Number 8. The Old Mill. The Old Mill is a short film from 1937 produced by Disney. It's an interesting film that delves into a surrealist presentation of life on an old and disused windmill. However, some theorize that there's a much more sinister meaning behind the film's existence. See, the dreamlike nature and strange angling of the Old Mill suggests that the film is, in its entirety, a dream. As it progresses further into a storm, the dream becomes a nightmare, which is commonly experienced at REM sleep. In particular, REM sleep is a point in which the sleeper is the closest to death, where their mind becomes as close as it ever will be to the beyond. Scary stuff, right? Only in waking does the sleeper escape their mortality. Number 7. Post-Aladdin. Returning to Agrabah, there's another theory which has been rattling around about the potential state of its world. See, Aladdin primarily takes place within a singular city. The only time it doesn't are when we visit the tomb or take a brief dip in the ocean. However, one theory goes that, based on inferred meaning from several lines, the film may take place in the far distant future, to the point where even the name of the real world Arabia may have been altered as dialects have changed and language evolved into the similar but distinct Agrabah. If the genie had spent 10,000 years to get his so-called crick in the net, then we must wonder what length of time in history could have passed for such an artifact to have been built and then passed on. This theory is supported by the genie's frequent pop culture references, ones which he could not have known. Number 6. Wheezy. Yes. Stinky Pete was the villain of Toy Story 2. We all know that. Oh, what a big bad man. Sure, but I know the truth. Remember Wheezy? Cute, gentle, discarded Wheezy, so comfortable in his new disuse as he was tossed aside by Andy? Wheezy, who was only played with for 3 to 6 months before his speaker broke? He watched, cold, mute, and alone as Andy picked up better toys, toys that didn't break. And then, when he found the yard sale, there was a glimpse of hope. Perhaps he might be able to escape his misery, his life stuck behind the bookshelf. But that hope is cruelly stolen from him by that wretched cowboy who hides him away once more in the shelves, that paper prison where he's rotted for so long. And then, when Buster takes Wheezy, it's a dream come true. But once more, Woody throws himself into the fray. Wheezy's eternal warden of hate. But when Woody is taken for his troubles by Al, it reveals something. Perhaps Wheezy planned this whole thing. He knew Woody would have tried to save him, and so he made sure that Woody was caught by the infamous toy collector. Al's Toy Barn is a constant commercial. Wheezy would have seen it at some time. A desperate plan, and ultimately one that was necessary for his freedom. Number 5. Fantasia. Disney's Fantasia is an artistic masterpiece, a surrealist showcase of animated skill and talent. However, it shares some interesting similarities with another work, one which many might know, Dante's Inferno. See, the beginning of the film could be interpreted as the flashing of a man's life before his eyes, the result of one passing on. From there, he is confronted by a devilish figure, and eventually taken up into heaven. With a precedent set by the old mill, it's clear that many workers at Disney were interested in portraying surrealist dreams, and with the amount of chemicals produced by the brain as one passes away, it's possible that the entire structure of this film was meant to represent this. Number 4. End of Snow White. Snow White, a Disney classic. A tale of romance, joy, and music. A tale of the end. In the opening of the film, Snow White is singing into a well when she is approached by a prince on a white steed. A common trope for sure, until we think about the implications of the color of the steed. When looking at the horsemen of the apocalypse, there are 2 riders whose horses are of a white color, one being Conquest, the other Death. I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and he who sat on it had the name Death, and Hades was following with him. A quote from the Book of Revelations. So, when Snow White eludes the prince here, only for him to find her at the story's end where she lay in the throes of poison, we must wonder, where was he taking her? I believe it's to her end. Her true end. Number 3. HeiHei. In Moana and in Hawaiian legends, there are many gods. Several are central to the plot of the film. However, none are more devious than the one hidden within. That's right, HeiHei is a demigod. This bizarre chicken is present for it all, and despite his immediate clumsiness, he is surprisingly durable. A normal chicken will live for roughly 5 to 10 years, and yet during the lifespan of Moana, HeiHei never changes, never ages, just simply is. He does not need to eat nor sleep. All HeiHei needs to do is be present to watch over his charge, Moana. And Moana does know this. She refuses to eat him with the statement that there's more to him than many think. I agree. Number 2. Carl. If you thought the beginning of Up was heavy, wait until you hear this. Carl is an old man, one who's lived for an extremely long life and is likely close to his end. This theory claims that he's already passed on, with Russell being his guardian angel. The idea of earning badges makes sense when contextualized by earning wings. Russell's desperation for Carl's approval is then justified by the fact that his entire existence requires Carl to be a good person, the earning of the badge being a symbol of Carl's kindness. And if angels can assume different forms, it would make sense for them to assume the form of a child, as Carl and Ellie were never able to have children, something which would have made him happier to see. Number 1. Wall-E food. A journey through space requires a massive amount of time and preparation. Resources are important, and their management is even more so. In Wall-E, the ships that are transporting humans throughout the stars have clearly been doing so for an extremely long time, far past the projected point that they'd initially imagined. So what then are they eating? Apparently, it's a synthetic protein shake, but you can't just whip nutritious molecules out of the thin air. That's sorcery. So where do the materials for these foods come from? Completely separate question. How do they dispose of bodies? And don't tell me it's cremation. Lighting a fire on a spaceship is such a ludicrous idea, I will laugh you into the sun.
Number 9. Andy's Monster. Before I move on, please hit those like and subscribe buttons if you're enjoying the video so far. I'd really appreciate it. In Monsters Inc., we learn that all children have a monster that is assigned to scare them so that they can collect the screams for energy. But since all the Pixar movies are connected, that means that characters from other movies have monsters too. In one of the training montage scenes in Monsters, Inc., we see Randall Boggs practicing his camouflage skills up against many different backgrounds, one of which is the same blue sky with clouds wallpaper we see on Andy from Toy Story's bedroom walls. Since Randall is the only one who can turn invisible like this, it shows that he is preparing up against things he may actually have to blend into. Randall seems to be the reason that Andy needs his toys for protection. Other scenes in the movie show a room that has the same poster Sid does in his room, showing another connection to Toy Story and why Sid may have been so mean. Number 8. Marriage turned inside out. I love Inside Out for giving a generation of kids a way to think about their emotions and teach them that finding a balance and talking about your emotions is the real key to happiness. But not all the characters in the movie have learned that lesson yet. It seems as though Riley's parents have a lot of work to do on their own, or more likely, together. When we have the brief glimpses inside of her parents' heads, we can see what's really going on. Sometimes her dad just isn't listening and is replaying an old memory, or sometimes they're distracted by their own emotions. While we would all hope that joy is the emotion running all of our controls, it seems that her parents aren't so lucky. Her dad's main emotion seems to be anger, with him running the show, yelling and getting literally hot-headed at the slightest things, while inside her mom's head, sadness takes center stage. This shows that the two may not be in the healthiest of places on their own, let alone as a couple. And I'm sure that this has led to some strife in Riley's life. Personally, I think that everyone needs to see a therapist a few times in their life. It really helps, I promise. And hopefully Riley's parents get some counseling and can learn to put joy back at the center of their controls. Number 7. All in the Family. While the story of Ratatouille takes us on a journey of Linguini becoming an amazing chef, thanks to his rat friend Remy, for lack of a better term, driving him from under his chef's hat, many believe that this is not the first time that this has happened in the Pixar universe. If you look closely at the cover of the Food and Wine magazine in the opening sequence, you can just make out what appears to be something under Chef Gusteau's hat. Some believe that this is his own little chef, who helped Gusteau become the culinary star he was. But if a quick picture isn't enough to convince you, how about this? When Skinner is trying to figure out if Linguini really is the heir to Gusteau's restaurant, he has a DNA test performed. He uses hair taken from Gusteau's hat and some DNA collected from Linguini. But the first time the lawyer ran the sample, it came back as rodent hair. We're led to believe that this was a hair taken from Linguini and was mixed up with Remy the rat's hair. But we never see a hair sample taken from Linguini. It's actually implied that Skinner used saliva that he got from the wine glass when he and Linguini were drinking wine in the office. So there was actually a rat hair in Gusteau's toque, and some even believe that it was Remy's mom who was under there, and she was likely killed by Skinner just before the review that brought down Gusteau's restaurant. Number 5. Crazy Coincidence. Sticking in the Cars universe, we actually now get to include the Planes movies as well. These films obviously take place in the same world, as planes and cars are seen interacting together all the time. But Planes gave us a very interesting look into the anthropomorphic vehicle's history. We learned from the character Skipper that he fought in what was essentially World War II, but we've established already that there are no humans left on this world, so does that mean that the cars have repeated some of humanity's worst atrocities? Some Reddit theorists believe so, and that opens up the floor for so many more questions, like, was there a car Churchill? Was there an evil mustached Volkswagen? And on another note, if there's a car Pope, does that mean that there was also a car Jesus? So many questions, so little gas mileage. Number 4. Incredibles United. There is a steadfast rule in the Incredibles films from superhero costume maker Edna Mode.
Knock it!
The main reason for this seems to be because she designed the costume for a teen hero named Stratogale, who met her untimely demise due to her cape. Stratogale had many powers, including the ability to talk to birds, and unfortunately, like many birds before her, she got caught in an airplane turbine. But since a bird in an engine causes major damage to a plane, surely a whole human would cause way more. In 1989, one of the worst single aircraft disasters happened when United Airlines Flight 232 suffered an engine failure, causing the plane to crash land, and only 184 of the 296 passengers survived. The plane in The Incredibles bears resemblance to one from United Airlines. Heroes have also been in hiding for 15 years until the film's release in 2004. 15 years before that being 1989. Some believe that in the Incredibles universe, the tragedy of Stratogale and the crash of Flight 232 are one and the same. And that is the reason the heroes had to go into hiding. Number 3. Brave Boo. Boo is by far one of the most adorable characters in the Pixar universe. She's sweet and funny, and she's so very sneaky. But some believe that she grows up to be something a bit more sinister. The witch from Brave. Some theorists think that Monsters, Inc. takes place far into the future, and that the doors they go through don't just lead to different locations, but to different times as well. And this is one of the main ways that the joint universe theory is held together. Boo learns and remembers that doors are somehow the key to finding Sully, or Kitty, again, and devotes her whole life to discovering this secret world. She eventually gains access, but goes through a door that sends her back in time, to the Middle Ages. Here she learns all sorts of magic from the Will-o'-the-Wisps, including the spell that turns Merida's mother into a bear. The driving plot of Brave. Far-fetched, I know, but in the witch's hut is a mountain of evidence proving the witch is a time-traveling Boo. One of the wood carvings is of the Pizza Planet truck, and there's a drawing of Sully on a log in the background, and the witch seems to often disappear through doors.
Coincidence? I think not!
Number 2. Shopper's Syndrome. This next theory is one that I haven't really heard talked about much. It states that the company By and Large, the same one that seems to own most of the human world in WALL-E, and earlier on as the company that made Buzz's batteries in Toy Story 3, and the company that forced Carl to leave his house in Up, was actually founded by Syndrome, the villain from the first Incredibles movie. As a young inventor, he created all sorts of robotic technologies that would go on to change and conquer the world. Many of the technological gadgets in WALL-E have a direct connection to Syndrome, such as the zero-point energy that restrains Eve, who also uses flight and organic scanners like Syndrome's Omnidroids. After his death, the company moved away from producing killer robots and began making commercial products, and monopolizing every industry that it could, until eventually, they took over the world just like its founder always wanted.
Starting off this countdown, we have Chip. Obviously, Chip from Beauty and the Beast got his name from the chip we see on his teacup. But the reason why he is chipped may be darker than we realized. For this, let's take a look at the movie Alice in Wonderland. If you noticed, at the tea party scene, their tea china has the same pattern as Miss Potts. So what if that is Mrs. Potts and Chip? On top of that, what if Chip got chipped when the Mad Hatter tried to saw a cup of tea in half for half a cup of tea? Meaning, he tried to literally cut a real boy in half. Ouch, that must have really hurt. But also, if this is the case, then it's incredibly dark and twisted. In our 9th spot, we have Tinkerbell. And if you guys are liking this video so far and want to see more videos like this, then make sure to give this video a big thumbs up. So, Tinkerbell is a darker character than we all realized. At the end of the movie Peter Pan, she literally tries to get Wendy killed. We see this dark side of her that we never knew about. But in the Tinkerbell movies, she seems like such a cheerful and kind-hearted fairy. So, what gives? Well, theory goes that one day the entire fairy population was wiped out, except for Tink. She then was living alone until she found Peter. No wonder she's so attached to him, she's all she has left. All her friends and family were wiped out. It gets darker when people suggested that Peter Pan is actually mind-controlling Tink. He has brainwashed her and the Lost Boys. Now she's his servant for eternity. All I know is that I get really bad vibes from her. Coming in at number 8, we have the real villain. You know who the villain of the Toy Story movies really is? No, it's not Stinky Pete. It's Andy's mom. Yeah, she's the true villain. If you think about it, she's the one that causes all the problems. In the first film, she made the whole you can only bring one toy rule, which made Woody all jealous. In Toy Story 2, she tries to sell Wheezy at a yard sale, leading to Woody trying to save him and getting kidnapped along the way. And in Toy Story 3, she threw the toys out on the curb, and from there they got brought to Sunnyside Daycare, where Lotso Bear tried to burn them all to death. None of this would have happened if Andy's mom just had kept the toys. She's at fault for all of this. She's the real villain. Moving on to number 7, we have the Twisted Theory. This theory connects a bunch of Disney movies together. These movies are Tangled, Frozen, The Little Mermaid, and Tarzan. Get ready for this one. It might blow your mind. So the theory starts suggesting that Elsa and Anna's parents died while on their way to Rapunzel's wedding with Eugene. In Frozen, we see Rapunzel and Eugene attending Elsa's coronation, so we know that they are family friends or something. But along the way, their parents got into a shipwreck. The theory continues on, claiming that the shipwreck that we see Ariel explore in The Little Mermaid is the one that took their parents' lives. Now, someone else added on to this theory, bringing Tarzan into the mix. So instead of their parents dying in a shipwreck, they believe the ship crashed upon an island. The island that we see in Tarzan. In fact, Elsa's mom was pregnant at the time and gave birth to Tarzan on the island, meaning Tarzan is the brother of Elsa and Anna. Sadly, as we know from the movie Tarzan, their parents died from a leopard attack. I know, it's a lot of things to take in, but it would be pretty cool if indeed these movies were related to each other. Moving on to number 6, we have Mother Gothel. There's this crazy theory out there that Meg from Hercules grew up to become Mother Gothel from Tangled. At first, I was not buying this theory at all, but wait until I present you with the evidence. Okay, so for starters, Rapunzel got her magical hair powers from a cosmic event that created a single drop of sunlight which fell from the heavens, and it grew this golden flower. Well, what if that single drop of sunlight occurred when Hercules first fell from Olympus? Now, take a look at Mother Gothel. First off, how does she know about this golden flower, and how does she know the exact song to sing to it? Well, maybe that's because Hercules told her about it, and told her the song to sing to it. Now, let's take a look at the song. The lyrics go as so. Flower gleam and glow, let your power shine. Make the clock reverse, bring back what once was mine. What if she is referring to Hercules and not her youth? In Hercules, Hercules gives up his immortality to be with Meg. So when Hercules died, she went on to outlive him. She probably misses him so much and feels guilty. So she's trying to bring him back. Not only that, in another song, Mother Gothel told Rapunzel to be aware of men with pointy teeth. Well, guess what? Hades, who kept her captive, has big pointy teeth. And lastly, one of Meg's famous lines was, "Ya big lug." What other character has said such a thing? Mother Gothel. Mind blown. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the original owner. For this one, let's bring it back to Toy Story again. And let's take a look at Andy's evil mom. This theory suggests that Andy's mom was Jesse's original owner, Emily. And from Jesse's super sad flashback scene, we can see just how much Emily hurt her. Now first off, both Andy's mom and Emily look similar in appearance. Then we have the fact that when Andy was a kid, he used to play with Woody while wearing a red cowboy hat. The cowboy hat looks exactly like the one Jesse wears. Andy's hat is just missing the white ribbon, but with age, it probably just fell off, because you can see the spot where it looks like a ribbon used to be. It could be that Andy's mom, aka Emily, used to wear that hat as well when she was young, and she saved it for her son. In fact, when she donated Jesse, you can see the red hat wasn't in the donation box, meaning she did save the hat. On top of that, the dates line up perfectly. Andy was born in 1989, meaning that his mother was probably born somewhere between the late 1950s to early 1960s. Now take a look at things in Emily's room. Her room decorations line up with that time period perfectly. So it may just be that Emily is Andy's mom, the woman that severely broke Jesse's heart. Coming in at number 3, we have Cruella de Vil. Turns out that Cruella de Vil is the way that she is because she might indeed be related to a serial killer. Honestly, this has to be my favorite theory out there. So at this one, we have to look at the 100 Dalmatians book written by Dottie Smith. In the book, the original de Vil Manor was once owned by a man that many villagers were terrified of. They used to hear screaming coming from his home late at night, and then they would, and I quote, began to count their children. Literally, he was a murderer. So now that might go on to explain Cruella's weird impulses to harm animals. It's cause she's a direct descendant from a serial killer. Coming in at number 2, we have the devil. Okay, this is a different theory about Cruella de Vil. Or should I say, Cruella Devil. This one suggests that she is a direct descendant of the devil. In the original novel, villagers also claimed that Cruella's ancestor had a tail and supernatural powers. At one point, the man was seen with blue forked lightning coming from his body. So maybe he was the devil himself, meaning Cruella is related to the devil. Again, this explains why she's so dark and twisted. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Brother Eater. Now, you may have heard of this next theory because it went viral on TikTok. But basically, it involves Scar and Mufasa from The Lion King. In the movie, an envious Scar kills Mufasa in order to steal the throne. Now, I don't think any of us ever thought about what happened to Mufasa's body. Like, I just thought he was left there to decay, or the hyenas got him or something. Well, it may just be that Scar ate his own brother. Yeah, I know, I'm horrified too. So according to the TikTok theory, lions sometimes eat other lions as an act of dominance. And we all know that Scar always wanted to be the dominant and more powerful one. Flash forward, in the scene where Zazu is singing to him, we can see Scar playing with an animal skull. Well, upon googling what a lion's skull looks like, it looks exactly like the skull Scar's playing with. That could literally be Mufasa's skull. So, in conclusion, Scar is a sicko who ate his brother and kept his skull as a souvenir.